more of you in our movement, absolutely. And we're going to get more, aren't we, through Leeds Get Organised. So great stuff. Thank you so much. So our next speaker today is none other than the Assistant General Secretary of Unite the Union, Howard Beckett. So Howard, it's a great privilege to have you here speaking to Leeds MayDay. Thank you.
Jane, thank you, and thank you for inviting me. And how do I follow Maya? Maya, that was inspirational stuff, and it is your generation and stories such as that that give hope to everybody that there is a better tomorrow than there is yesterday. So thank you for your contribution. Thank you for everything you're doing to recruit members, and thank you for your strength. It's incredible, and I felt inspired listening to you. Jane, what a year we are all facing. We know that we have seen over 150,000 deaths in our societies. We know we have a government that has failed to follow anything approaching zero COVID. We know the thousands of workers that we've lost, over 1,000 workers alone lost in the NHS. We know that there have been over 134,000 complaints to the HSE in reference to unsafe workplaces and not one single prosecution. In Unite, twice we have had to take legal action in order to defend the right to picket. Workers who are told that it is safe to be inside a workplace, but not safe to have a socially distanced picket outside that workplace. And twice, once with the Westminster government and once with the Holyrood government, we have had to take action to change the regulations in order to protect the right to picket through this crisis. And that is in stark contrast to the 77,000 individual prosecutions that there have been for breaking COVID regulations, a society where the message is very clear that workers are to be blamed for this crisis and the establishment are to get away with it. And now we hear the stories such as the one that Sarah told, of workers forced into work through this crisis, told that their work is essential. In reality, for Sarah's union, workers who are told that they are feeding the nation when they are not getting enough money to feed their own families. And what the workers now face, they face the reality of deregulation through free ports. They face fire and rehire. They face the prospect of redundancies. They face in-work poverty. And as Sarah referenced, they face food poverty. And this is an attack now on our civil liberties. On this May Day, we should all recognise that workers' civil liberties are now being attacked. They attacked our right to picket through the COVID laws. They have passed the CHIS legislation that has looked to legalise crime, murder, torture and rape, legalised before those crimes are permitted or take place. And they have legalised the infiltration of our movements, infiltration of Black Lives Matters, infiltration of Extinction Rebellion and infiltration of the trade union movement. And when we thought that legislation could not get worse, we were all mistaken, because along comes the police crime and sentencing legislation that seeks to criminalise the lives of those in the Traveller, Romani and Gypsy communities, looks to attack our rights of protest and tell us that we cannot protest if our protests are too noisy or if we have not agreed a start time and a finish time with the police, looks to tell us that we are guilty of a criminal offence just for ought to know of whether or not there is a regulation that we are breaching. And worse, the worst for me, it looks to legalise racism within our society. It seeks to protect the rights of racist slave trader monuments before our rights of protest. If anyone asks the question as to whether or not racism is institutionalized in society, simply look at this piece of legislation, and we should all reference the fact that racism is being used by society right here and now to divide working people. But we can all be inspired by the story of Maya. We can all be inspired by our history. The reality is, in 1946, when people returned from the Second World War, they would have never imagined in 1938 that they could build a social state, build the NHS, build 1 million council houses and send their children to third-tier education. And it is why now all of us need to summon that same strength, summon the strength that Maya is showing, summon the strength for a new generation, and believe that we can create another society, a society where we ban zero-hour contracts, where we have workers' rights from day one, where we understand that we deserve a decent day's pay for a decent day's work, where we protect our civil liberties. The reality now for all of us is that we must get in a union. We must understand the power of a collective and understand the power of trade unions, understand the power of our labour, understand that if we remove our labour, this country cannot operate. We have to fight now for a new generation. We have to fight for decency. We have to fight for our civil liberties. And in the words of Martin Luther King, we have to fight for justice.
Thank you so much, Howard. They were incredibly powerful words. It's really, really good to have you speaking here to us this May Day. Thanks so much. Our next speaker today is one of our own, the president of Leeds UCU, the university, but also the national president of UCU. So great welcome to one and only lovely Vicky Blake. Here you go, Vicky.
Thank you so much for having me, guys. It's such a pleasure to be here with you. And again, like everyone else, I wish we were together in